Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters qualifier for Shenzhen in North America. We are going to qualify 2 North American representatives today. We already had our first series of the day and it was a pretty cool one. And now to cater all the audiences in our very first 2 series of the day, we represent all 3 races. It's going to be Suppy versus Polt. I think this is going to be one hell of a series, Nate. And you know what's even better, Nate? They're already live.
That's right. We're already in the game, guys. Welcome. Welcome to Overgrowth for our second series of the day. We've got the Zerg, we got the Terran, and our Zerg player for this game. You just saw him win against 10 Archons at Mutalisks. It is Evil Geniuses, Suppy.
It's one of those games where if you're one of those awesome people that always writes like battle reports on the Team Liquid forums, you're like, all right, 16-minute mark. Zerg player makes 7 or like 22 Mutalisk against 16 Phoenix of Death Row. Then you're like reading like, okay, man, this Zerg's kind of screwed. You know, 20-minute mark. Zerg player is still on Corruptor Muda. Protoss has 22 Phoenixes and 9 Archons. Then you're just like, okay. And then you have to write another update and somehow explain how Suppy won that game. And everyone in the chat is just like, whatever you're writing makes no sense. You're terrible at these write-ups. You're just like, I'm trying, man.
No, man, the StarCraft was just crazy. That's all that needs to be said. But, you know, when we look at this series, of course, this is one of those cool ones. And of course, our Terran player for this map, representing Cooler Master Storm, it is Polt.
The one and only.
The one and only Poltimus Maximus.
Polt, no stranger to Intel Extreme Masters. I think one of the most, you know, despite him being such a successful player and despite winning so many tournaments, if you ask people about a remarkable Polt run, I think a lot of them are going to bring up the Intel Extreme Masters Cologne one, where he may not have won the tournament as he fell in the final against Hero, but he played absolutely fantastic and had so many cool ways of dealing with the Blink Stalkers that were so popular in that day and age of StarCraft 2 with the map pool that we were using.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, Polt is one of those guys that breaks the meta, right? He's not afraid. He's not afraid of whatever it is that are usually bothering people. He takes a calm, educated approach to fixing things, but he's done some cool stuff in Terran versus Zerg recently. We've had the pleasure of seeing him play quite a bit of it, and he's busted out a very wide variety of build orders. So when I look at this series, I say, Suppy, you've had a lot of games of Polt that are available to watch. Polt's had a lot of broadcasted games lately. His WCS group. He's played like he had a show match against Stefano, 7 games that were actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think you should talk about that, Nate. Well, we do see this first Reaper hop into the base, and of course he's going to try to pick off a drone, but that shouldn't happen against a fantastic Zerg like E.g. Suppy. Nate, you recently had the pleasure of casting a best of 7 TVZ between Stefano and Polt. For the people who miss it, because there has been a ridiculous amount of competitive StarCraft games lately broadcasted, tell the people, what did they miss and what happened?
Well, it was pretty cool. Like overall, Polt played strong, but actually had a lot of difficulty when trying to go for early pressure-based build orders. We've seen a lot of early Hellbat timings off of 2 bases, but that's never really been Polt's style per se. It's not something that I would really say characterizes the way that Polt likes to play. He's always been a 3 command center player, pretty much ever since it became standard in the meta. But he had a lot of difficulty, I feel, dealing with just the endless Zergling run-bys, as well as dealing with the counterattacks to early aggression. So Polt, I feel like we're probably going to see him go back towards a little bit more of a standard setup, but that doesn't mean we still won't see him open up with something like a Starport to get out of Fast Viking.
And the result of that best of 7 was that Stefano won the series 4-2, correct?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would find that very surprising. That's also something that I kind of mentioned or kind of thought about earlier today, but we do see a Starport go down, Nate, before a 3rd command center.
Yeah, well, he does.
And a 2nd Rex as well. Interesting build order over here by Polt.
Okay, so I do believe I don't know if it was you and I that saw this, because there's just been so many StarCraft games, and Polt's played actually in all of the different things that we've been casting. But he's done this. He's done this 2 racks, this very fast 2-barrack setup before.
Is this with the 4 Marauder drop that he does then, or is that unlikely today?
No, I feel like it was more Marine based. Usually when he does the 4 Marauder drop, it's just off of 1 barracks, but the fact that there's no 3rd command centers, it really boggles my mind. Obviously, you know, as observers, we can see that Suppy's building Roach Warren, so that might not necessarily be a bad thing. But
Suppy had a great scout with his Overlord. That's as good as you could possibly wish for.
Like, if you're a Zerg player, if you ever scouted a Terran player has more than 1 barracks before they have, say, their 3rd command center, then all you really need to do is make sure that around, you know, that 8:30, 9-minute mark, in case they rush stim out, you just have like a Baneling nest. And then if you see it coming, you can build Banelings, you can defend. And Suppy's going to build a Baneling nest, and he might have been planning on doing that, but it's just one of those cornerstones that you need to defend heavy Marine pushes because despite the makeup of this composition for Polt, without an armory, he's not really worrying about much other than Marines and Hellions.
This is actually a little bit troublesome for Suppy, as right now all he has is 6 Zerglings and these 4 Queens. Against 4 Hellions and 3 Reapers, they can push out a little bit of damage on this hatchery, but of course it's going to be very hard for Polt to ever kill it.
He needs roaches. He needs to get a few roaches out to defend the follow-up attack, but you know, it's all about delaying it as much as you can. Now there's 5 coming out. These Reapers and Hellions putting on some good pressure. Transfuse is being thrown around, and a lair is on the way. But other things that are important to consider, you said it earlier, Roddy, there's no 3rd command center, and I'd like to point out there are no engineering bays, so Suppy, without any evolution chambers of his own, this is one of those times where investing in upgrades can actually put you in a rough spot. He needs every dollar to defend.
He gets a Hellion there. It's kind of nice. You know, that's a kill that you normally don't expect to get with your Queens. Of course, the Tom Cruise Viking that Polt, I swear to God, if we ask Polt what his favorite actor is, he's going to say Tom Cruise. I guarantee it.
Sure not some Korean actor?
Yep, it's going to be Tom Cruise. I'm so sure.
I'll take your word for it. These Hellions and Reapers actually putting on great pressure. There's like, how often do you see a Zerg player with Roach Baneling at 9 minutes defending?
Yeah,
right?
That's very strange.
The standard would be, I'm in your natural at 9 minutes at Roaches and Banelings.
I am rolling up right now, and I'm trying to get the reactor in the supply depot so I can break it to your main base and stand on top of your production and straight up win the game. Otherwise, I am in trouble with my Roaches and Banelings at the 9-minute and 30-second mark.
It's really crazy because I've set my PC to Suppy's vision and be like, he really hasn't seen where this bio army is, and it can be so scary to deal with this because his only vision is his Overlord on the 3rd and the Overlord in the top left of Polt's main watching for a drop. So he can push all the way out to the eastern tower. Now those medevacs are coming in to the main base, and these Banelings are very well positioned. They detonate on some of those Widow Mines and the Marines, and that's going to force Polt back as Roach speed begins, but these Hellions are also going to be thwarted on the left side, so solid defense.
Yeah, that was really awesome, actually, for those very few Banelings. 6-7 Marines getting picked off against a 2-base Terran. That is just fantastic news. One Widowmine gets a reasonable connection as he picked up 3 kills, but so far, you know, it's obviously, if you're Suppy, it's really hard to feel good about this game because you've been very defensive, you've been very in the dark, and you've been making a lot of units. But this is actually going pretty okay for Suppy as soon as he's able to truly reestablish his economy.
He's done a reasonable job of defending so far, especially I just have to say again how limited his map vision has been. Now the creep is going to start to push out a little bit, so it gives him more vision on the right side of the map. You can see these Hellions continuing to poke up, but his upgrades are going to be a little bit later, as his Evo Chambers will finish when 1-1 is almost halfway complete for Polt. So Polt will get an upgrade advantage in this game, at least for a short amount of time. And he's going to go into at least a defensive tank or two, since there are Roaches and Banelings on the map.
What a bizarre TVZ. Despite not a whole lot happening yet, you know, 30 units have died for Suppy, 10 units have died for Polt. I'm really surprised by how this game has played out. This is not in trend with the current meta at all.
No, this is very different. This is, I mean, most Terran players that go for early attacks do it to get, like, it's always with a Hellbat backbone. And, you know, Hellbats are really strong in the current meta. They've been used quite heavily. Obviously, Roach Baneling can deal with Hellbats reasonably well.
You know,
good scan attempt this creep, though.
Yep. Widowmine actually doing some friendly fire, blows up one of the Hellions. If you talk about things that are unusual as well, a Terran play that has killed 0 drones, yet the Zerg is at 49 workers at the 12-minute mark. That is also extremely bizarre.
Yeah, you can really tell how cautious Suppy's been playing this game because he has Baneling speed, Roach speed, Zergling speed, Roaches and Banelings out on the map. He's a little bit behind on upgrades, but like I said, none of these units have actually crossed halfway across the field yet.
Has he been too careful?
It's possible, but the problem is a 2-base Terran player has just so much extra forces. You thought it was hard to kill Terrans before on 3 command centers, and yeah, mules will help you come back, but if you don't deal any economic damage, 2-base is still really strong. This army that Polt has is monstrous.
Yeah, it's way stronger than Suppy's current army. You would really say he's going to need some burrowed Baneling connections, but of course he doesn't have burrow. Yeah. So he's basically just going to rely on these Banelings getting the best connections.
I really like Suppy using those Overlords to spread creep while he moves the tumors. Like, the only way that Polt can really lose this game, lose control of this game, is if he steps on creep to take a fight. Because the Banelings and the Roaches with speed, doesn't matter, have a slight upgrade advantage. Like, once those Banelings get around your Marines, it's all over but the crying. So he also has to be careful because his combat shield won't be done for another 20 or so seconds.
He's buying some time with his drop on the left side of the map, picks up an Overlord, and of course is able to pick up the majority of the Marines, actually gets every single Marine out there. Still has his one Viking as well. 6 kills. Why not? It's another Polt game.
Yeah.
You know, every single time I see Polt open up with a Viking, I wonder why this is not the standard, because that just seems ridiculously cost effective to me.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see when, like, in the next game, Suppy probably won't even move his Overlords out as much. But 2-2 is coming in. There's a lot of Roaches and Banelings moving up here. Polt trying to posture his army off Crete, but this Zerg army is actually this army is just massive.
Polt should really not take a fight out of his tanks. Actually, these tanks are a little bit exposed. Is Suppy gonna go for it?
And he's gonna move in. Those tanks really need the Banelings. A couple of good attacks, good detonations to force those Banelings to die. And there's really mostly Roaches left. So yeah. I think the majority of Polt's Bioforce can actually take this head-to-head if he waits for a little bit more reinforcements.
There's still a lot of Roaches in this mix. There is a drop, of course, active as well on the left top side of the map. We'll take a look at that one soon.
I'd like to see him pick up in these medevacs and just run back to his base where his production is.
You saw him focus fire that one Baneling. That one Baneling was getting close to these Marines.
Polt's got sick moves. Sick moves for days, Roddy.
This Roach count is actually still doing relatively well. Might be able to get a few more, because there are still so many Roaches that they can actually one-shot bio units, so that makes these medevacs a little less effective. Of course, if you just A-move against a line of Marauders, you don't have enough DPS to kill them. But it doesn't really matter if the Marauders are on the medevacs or not. If 15 Roaches at one shoot at the Marauder, it's going to die.
Yep. He actually contaminated the factory as well, so his siege tank not able to be produced back home for Polt. It's got to be frustrating. And 2-2's just now begun for our Zerg player. Polt already has his 2-2. This is a very good position for the Terran player as far as taking up straight up fights goes, but the problem is, like, this is something that Hyun used to love to do, and despite any upgrades, when you have this many Roaches and Banelings, your upgrades aren't as important as where you take the fight and just overwhelming your opponent with Banelings.
I'm worried about this drop that's going on the right side of the map. At the same time, of course, Polt moving forward with his army in the middle of the map as well, because this is Polt and this is what he does. But this drop is going to pull so many units out of position that it's going to be extremely hard for Suppy to split up his forces in the right way.
Yeah, this is a tense moment right now. He's just dropping the main base, doing quite a bit of damage, like you said, Roddy.
It's going to survive. It's going to survive.
Yeah, there's way too many Marines here. Trying to take out the actual army. There's a little bit of a pickup. Did lose a solid chunk of Bioforces. Suppy's been able to hold strong in the supply count, but a lot of that is still Roaches. Picks off those Banelings. Good target firing by Polt.
Still extremely close. Army supply. He might be able to pick up this macro hatchery, though. That's a nice little pickup. That's frustrating for Suppy.
Yeah, the harder you make it to spend that money, the better. And he's now going to back off, but scary spot to be in. Polt is adding on command centers back home, his 4th and 5th, as he picks off the 4th base of Suppy. So all he really needs to do is get into another secure position, lock up his 4th base, and I feel Polt will be in a phenomenal position, mostly because he already has a 4th command center, and Suppy does not have a 4th base even started again yet.
Yeah, still 40 Roaches on the map, and 40 Roaches is still something you can do a lot of work with. It's going to be hard as well, I feel, with the current way that this game has played out for Polt to take an additional base. Of course, for Suppy as well, after losing that hatchery on the left side as a few Banelings, not really connected with anything. Suppy has to be careful. He's spending a lot of money. He might get a few siege tanks, might get this command center. No cancel either. Gets the supply depots. This is all nice. But I think for now he should back off. I don't think he should push the issue over here.
Yeah, this is scary. Picks off the Banelings as well. Another drop hitting that main base once again, and this is just so frustrating, but the Roaches and Banelings are coming into that 3rd base. Polt's siege tank needs to hit the Banelings. He's trying to target fire them down, and there are only a few Banelings left retreating to his tank line. Oh, this is not where Suppy wants to fight exactly, Roddy. There's so many siege tanks, so many Marauders, and his Roach force has been battered back. A couple Banelings not even able to make it into that mineral line, and Polt has a huge supply lead. Even these Banelings getting a few SCVs won't help with how many command centers are on the map.
Right, good rate splitting there as well. And this drop is still active in the main base too. Eventually Suppy will be able to clean it up. But needless to say, 107 army supply against 32. This was a great victory for Polt. I really felt it was all good for Suppy the moment he just picked up this tank, this bunker, the supply depots, and he cancelled that 4th base. I felt he should have just backed off there. There was no reason for him to keep pushing the issue. He can't run in to so many tanks. It was just a line of siege tanks. There were even a few Widow Mines in the mix as well. It was just unlikely. That was a horrible position for Roachbane to fight. This is a great run by the way. He's going to clean up his entire SCV line, but at what cost, Nate? Because there is a Terran army on the other side of the map.
Yeah, Polt's been scanning, trying to clean up the creep, and this command center might have been planted, but he has to delay it just a little bit, at least delay the mining. This is so important for Suppy to throw in those Zergling run buys. I think they're really underappreciated in this matchup. Players like Life always remind us how good they are, but these Banelings not getting the connections on the Marines. I love how he pulls these Marines back behind the Marauders. Like, it's something that's really easy to mess up, but does so well. And Polt, with that, will take game number 1. Suppy, he's a bit of a rough space. You know, going for Roach Baneling is not. It's not like it's a bad composition, but it really seemed like he was rattled when he scouted Polt. He's like, Polt on 2 bases? Like, what kind of craziness could be coming? And then everything just suddenly snowballed off of that early Roach Horn. And, you know, you build Roaches pre-10 minutes, you don't even move them across the map. That's a scary spot to be in. Of course, you don't want to die to something. Like if Polt decides that he wants to do, you know, if there is an armory that Suppy doesn't see because that Viking pushes him away, and that armory just happens to turn those 8 or so Hellions into Hellbats, and you don't have Roach Baneling, you're dead. Like, you're just dead. We've seen it time and time again. So great play by Polt, and I can't really fault Suppy for his decisions, but it just didn't work out for him.
No, a really unusual game, but a fun one regardless. And you know, Nate, on those awesome BlizzCon cards that BlizzCon gave out last year, I think one of the quotes on my card, and yeah, I had a card, I'm really proud of that. It said, like, if you try to be safe against everything, you end up a little bit behind against everything, or just something among those lines. I have no idea what I said once upon a time when I was actually feeling wise for once. But I feel that's kind of what happened in the last game. I felt Suppy was trying to be safe against everything, but because he was playing so overly safe, in the end he was still down 10 workers against a 2-base Terran, and that's not really something that should happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, yeah, he doesn't have a 3rd command center, but SCVs are still SCVs. And if you have more SCVs than drones, you're mining more than your Zerg opponent. It's okay. You don't always have to rely on a mule backbone. And that's just Polt's macro shining through, because if he goes for a fast 3rd base, Suppy's allowed to play the game the way that he would normally like to. In this situation, as you put it, he's very uncomfortable because he wasn't sure what he was up against, so he had to play very safe. And when you try to play too safe, it's really easy to abuse that, because it's not like Polt pulled all of his SCVs, went for a big attack, and those Banelings destroyed all of his workers. He really was just behind on economy most of the game trying to defend against that attack.
I believe our bracket is ready as well. Just to give you guys a brief update about what's going on at the Intel Extreme Masters Qualifier for Shenzhen, I believe is the way we pronounce it. As Polt vs Suppy is what we're currently looking at. Polt being up 1-0, of course. Huck still waiting for his opponent. Actually, his opponent is Illusion, I already know this. And Henderlisk is still waiting for his opponent. So look at these Canadians. It could be 3 out of 4 Canadians on the south side of this bracket. Canada's taking over, man. Who said those Canadians were peaceful people? They're destroying this IEM bracket, Nate.
The Canada Fest. That's what it's all about here, ladies and gentlemen.
Maple syrup all over the place. Either way, we are getting ready for game number 2. It's already live in front of us. It will be played on Frost. Does Conan have what it takes to at least take a map, or maybe the series against Polt? We're about to find out. As map number 2 is being played on Frost, as so many games these days are played on Frost. Frost everywhere.
On Frost.
If I was a polar bear, Nate, I'd like to live on Frost.
On Frost.
Even though there's not a whole lot of water to swing around, right? Is there any water? No, there's lava. How can there be lava on Frost? It's terrible.
Well,
the ice caps truly are melting.
I feel like in the corners that would be water, but I don't know.
Man, imagine how sad you would be if you're like born as a polar bear and then suddenly you see lava. That's like the worst.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but if Frost has snow, then you can still melt that, right? And drink that, right? I don't know.
Yeah, but like they have to swing around. They have to swim around, and like polar bears would probably be generally interested in how lava feels like. Then they might touch lava and they burn their paws.
You think the polar bears would get extinct from curiosity because of lava?
Yes.
They'd be like, what is this?
I think this is a realistic problem that we have to address.
Right, the map maker. As soon as the series is over, we want that lava replaced with ice water.
Yeah.
Stat.
I mean, that makes sense, right? The map is called Frost, and make it freaking ice water. Put some like toys in the water as well. You know how panda bears always play with like balls and buckets.
Just imagine if there wasn't lava, people wouldn't be able to appreciate the snow part as much, right? They'd be like, oh, it's all snow, right? What defines it?
No, maybe. But still.
There's
I would much rather see just like some giant ice mountains, or icebergs.
There's some deep level art to this, it seems.
Of course, CM Storm's Polt is our red Terran spawning on the right bottom side of Frost. He is currently living in Atlanta, Georgia, the hometown of the one and only Mr. Bitter, as he's going up against EG's very own Suppy. Suppy is currently still living in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the Bay Area in general.
Yeah,
so it's a little East Coast versus West Coast over here, red versus blue. Man, the American vibe. I feel it. It's real.
Yeah, that's all we need. Map's white. We got red, blue. Right, we're already good. We got the colors.
Where the stars at? See, replace the lava with stars, and it will all be good.
I thought Polt usually used the star logo, but neither of these players are. The decals.
The cardboard animation one.
Yeah, I love that one because
Yeah,
it gives
cool.
your Marauders yellow shoulder pads.
They got stripes.
Yeah, looks sick. This Reaper's gonna come in, and this is a pretty quick Reaper, so the Queen won't be out in time, but those Zerglings should be able to stave it off. I don't think he can get really anything with that Reaper yet. So killing a Zergling would be nice, but nothing in this life is guaranteed, Roddy.
Now we have horizontal spawning positions. Do you think that's going to change the way that Polt is going to approach this matchup?
Oh yeah, like that Viking, like Overlords to go anywhere on this map have a really far distance to travel, but you can't. If Polt opens up with a Viking again, you're not going to be able to get any Overlords between those bases because it's such a short distance that the Viking will find all those Overlords very fast anyway. I think Terran players probably have nightmares. I know I have nightmares about playing this map cross spawns. It's statistically, I think it's like one of the worst matchups for Terran right now. But on close spawns, I think it's okay.
That's really funny actually when you think about like map statistics and map victories of one race over the other. They never really take spawning locations in consideration. Well, that has such a major impact. With
the way that Terran vs Zerg works right now, even with the Hellbat patch, like you do not want to play against Zerg on Cross Frost or Alter Zim at all. These Reapers are getting a nice bit of damage. I'm really liking this.
Polt is sticking around longer than he normally is. His speed is going to finish up within 15 seconds. Normally he's already back. It is 5 minutes and 50 seconds. This is the moment for Polt to bring back his Reapers. This is something that Polt is always aware of, and I've said this before. You can calculate very easy when your opponent's speed is going to be ready. As you just think like, all right, it's roughly 44 seconds for him to mine 100 gas.
It's just under 2 minutes. Like once you see that he's got the gas, where it's like, well, it's just under 2 minutes for speed to research. So
yeah, it's
mostly if it's super fast, the earliest you usually ever see it is 5:30. If you're playing someone crazy like Life, and then for a situation like this, 6 minutes or so is a pretty reasonable time as well.
Yeah, most of the time, like 99% of the time, it's between 5:50 and 6:10. That's just the general ballpark.
Yeah.
The economic speed opening, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. And Suppy, once again, this game, scouts the same exact setup. Starport with a delayed stim, that fast Viking on the way. And Suppy, once again, is going to build a Roach Horn and go to lair. I'm just wondering what he does to change that from the last game, because he's taking his third base, and I don't find that surprising at all, but these Reapers and these Hellions should be able to put on a lot of pressure against this, because that Viking is also going to slow Suppy down. He's going to need to rebuild a lot of his Overlords.
Again, there are a lot of Overlords out on the map now, and I would really love to see him pull them back, as I really don't think it's useful losing 6 Overlords against a single Viking. It doesn't really help him that much anyway in this phase in the game.
No. It's tough because it's like you're so scared about whatever your opponent could do, because Polt could very easily build an armory. Like right now, he has the money to build an armory, and then he just turns these 8 or 10 Hellions into Hellbats, and all of a sudden Suppy's dead, right? Like I was actually talking to somebody about like this exact scenario, because it was like, well, I had a lot of success recently on ladder. It's like, well, I don't actually do Hellbat pushes myself. But someone was telling me, all the Zerg players, whether or not I do Hellbat pushes, they're going to be scared of Hellbat pushes because everybody else is doing them.
Yep.
So you really have to take that into account with your build orders, even if your opponent isn't the type of player to do that. So it's really scary. And Suppy, he's playing this game as close to the chest as he can. I'd be really surprised if he commonly went Roach, Ling, Bane as his primary army composition.
Double Evolution Chamber is out as well. I'm curious to see what he decides to upgrade, if he's going to get melee or missile attacks.
I feel like it's probably melee just because he went melee in the last game and he still built a bunch of roaches, but I guess good change.
I think you're right. I'm just curious about it. Once again, this Viking is having the time of his life. So far, 4 kills, at least as soon as he picks up this one, which he obviously will. And then he still has this one as well to pick up over here on the left side, and eventually he could get this one as well. That is 6 kills on a Viking. That is just... I can't even emphasize on how many I think that is.
It's such a great feeling when you kill those Overlords.
Like, I don't even kill 6 Overlords with my 5 Phoenixes, Nate.
No. Well, that's just the thing, though, right? Because if you expect people to open up with Phoenix or anything like that, then you know that you shouldn't send your Overlords out.
This is a scary little push, by the way, as well.
Yeah. This would be even scarier if he had Hellbats. Oh, that Widowmine chunking the Overlord right there. We'll kill that. That actually supply blocks Suppy a little bit. Cannot produce any units for a short period of time.
There's
and
one
these
more
Banelings, Banelings without speed, they do not trade terribly well against Stim Marines, or Hellions for that matter.
It was a really unfortunate shot on that one Widowmine. Nice micro there by Polt, even saving the Widowmine, picking off one of those Banelings as well in the mix. His third command center is about to finish up. Of course, it is a little later than it normally is, but again, he is still 3 workers ahead. Suppy right now squeezing out 11 additional drones. That is a lot of drones for being under a little bit of pressure, but I guess he looked at his army and he's like, a lot of those units are low on HP, I have a little bit of creep spread, I have a few Banelings, Baneling speed on the way. This is the right moment for me to squeeze out a few workers, and he's doing this a lot quicker than in the last game, Nate, so that's good news for Suppy.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I mean, Suppy's getting his worker count up, but he's also ahead on upgrades, right? His upgrades are going to finish a little bit faster. It might not seem like a huge deal, but he was about a solid minute or so behind Polt's upgrades on the last map, so everything in this game just looks a lot better for Suppy. He's managed to find a way to defend this without completely committing himself, and I like this position a lot. Baneling speed, Roach speed. I'd still like to see him get Aspire because Polt's going to be really annoying with those drops soon, but you know, to each their own.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he doesn't have the gas for that, no? Like, if he keeps making so many Roaches and Banelings.
One thing I will say is that the small distance on this map does make it a lot easier. If Suppy wanted to push, like he's at 6 Overlords finishing, if he wanted to push Polt right now with a ton of Roaches and Banelings, these spawns make that a lot easier. He doesn't have very far to go to get to Polt's third.
Excellent point, Nate, and I really think that Polt is feeling the exact same way as he throws down 2 additional bunkers, and that's only because he is worried about the Zerg just going absolutely bad. I guess we can say batshit crazy and just make so many units that he's just able to overrun the higher DPS army of Polt. But you know, DPS is nice, but you also need the units to actually push it on.
The burst of those Roaches is strong. Polt's been building tanks. Where are they? They're kind of spread around.
And such good timing on these bunkers. It's just absolutely crazy.
But the bio army isn't here quite yet, and he can just peel off a few of those units to buy himself some time. Polt is not willing to engage. Going up this ramp is probably the only way that Suppy could really lose this engagement, because now that tank gate comes into play, helping pick off these Roaches. He's got his army split up, and now I think Polt almost has enough. This next of the Banelings, though,
what a hero tank.
The thing is, Suppy's going to lose so much every time he goes up this ramp with these units that are on the high ground. It's not necessarily bad because he's still going to get through and kill a lot of this, but it's he's bleeding out a lot to make this work. And he's going to get into the natural. There's still the bunker, still a good amount of Marines and Marauders. Tank's still alive. Cleans out a few SCVs though.
I feel there are just a few too many Terror units over here in really well protected positions, as these tanks from on the high ground did 17 kills and 12 kills on these 2 tanks. Those were the 2 most cost-effective tanks that I've seen in a while. Of course, all the SCVs over here have died. There were not too many there, but still a handful, I guess.
I'm glad he did that, because I hadn't even noticed originally if he had made him lift that command center off. Yeah. But if you run up there and trade for just some army units and don't kill any of the Terran units, it's tough.
I would love to see, like at any given time in this game, 16 to 18 speedlings over here on the north side that he can swing in from the right side and start harassing this mineral line again. Would make life so much harder for Polt to actually move out. He's going to have to worry about getting a bunker or maybe a supply depot wall on the right side. Either way, for now, Polt is clearing out the creeps, and he also got 2 queens in his effort. Suppy did some serious damage there, but I still feel in the end it wasn't enough. It wasn't the crippling amount of damage that you normally look for when you make so many Roaches and Banes.
When you commit that much of your forces to just killing workers, and then you remember Terran has mules, you realize, well, that's not gonna slow him down too much, because Polt, we can see, still has a good amount of money, still has a good income. Roaches still take up a lot of supply, so that advantage that Suppy has is a bit deceiving, since these medevacs, these medevacs might as well be worth 10 supply because you can't kill them. Like, they're so good, they're so cost effective to just have them there for the positioning ability that it gives you. In this 4th base being attacked, they can just lift up, they can dance around, and Polt, he doesn't actually even have to kill anything. He can just keep moving these between places, and Suppy has no choice but to run everything over there to defend.
This is something that we went over a lot in our last few casts. When you play against a unit composition like this, when it's so many Zergling, Roaches and Banelings, you don't want to fight with 150 supplies at Terran or even 160. No, you want to fight when you have like 185, 195, or maybe close to you just maxed out. You know, that's when you want to fight.
Yeah, if you're a Terran player and you're like, oh, my opponent loves Roachling Bane, if they don't kill you with their first attack, just drop everywhere. Polt's got all of his tanks set up to protect his production, so you couldn't try to force some sort of weird quasi-base trade with just mass Roach. And that's really nice. Now Polt's going to move out. Now he has his tanks, and how many does he have on the map? 6 is a great number of siege tanks to push against this army with.
And
like,
9 Marauders as well, let's not forget about those.
Yeah. The sweet spot for any Terran player is like 6 to 9 tanks. That's like the magic amount of tanks you need with Bio that will just absolutely obliterate any real Roach army, because the splash is almost guaranteed to kill all the Banelings as well. And there are a lot of Banelings being made. 2-2's about to complete. I like this position for Polt, but this showed he's not quite set up just yet.
Polt has to be careful over here because Suppy is fighting with his entire army and Polt is not. A few Banelings, of course, this wasn't great positioning by Polt regardless, and in the end he makes it work. But I feel this is like as good as it's gonna get for Suppy, you know. If Polt makes life more complicated than it has to be and spreads his forces all over the place, that is fantastic in the multitasking, but also makes a chance realistic for Suppy to actually win the straight up engagement. But if it's just 200 supply versus 200 supply, there's no way Suppy can roll into Polt.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at the way that Polt's doing this, right? This is nice little counterattack that you'd kind of mentioned earlier, mostly Zerglings, but this time it's a few Roaches, and Polt's Marines and Marauders are just destroying this force very easily. He's still got that army in the top left side. He still has his main force coming home, and Polt scans, he sees like that's
Banelings.
A lot of Banelings. Tanks are going to siege up. Polt, he is sieged in time, and look how fast these Banelings die. Polt's just got so much army supply here. Once those Banelings are gone, Marines and Marauders, they make lunch out of these Roaches, Roddy. He is destroying this force. So many medevacs. There are no medevacs for Roaches here.
Rarely have I seen 44 Banelings connecting with so few Terran units. Absolutely amazing focus fight there by Polt. Polt will be able to pick up these Zerglings, will be able to pick up these Roaches, and that is going to be it. GG is called, and Polt will move on to the semi-finals of the winner bracket of the Intel Extreme Masters qualifier here for our North American players. Solid performance by Polt, Nate. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, just great play by Polt. And that build order, the way that Polt played, if you're a Terran player, if you're like, you know what, I'm tired of Zergs just droning up crazy on 3 bases, you do a little bit of 2 base pressure like that. If you can mix that into your repertoire of builds, that is so scary for a Zerg player to scout. Like, whenever a Zerg player, you ever scout a Terran that's only on 2 bases, when for the last 2.5 years, everybody's been going 3 command center, you know something is up. You know there's something that you need to be careful of. And in this instance, it's just Polt's crazy amount of pressure, but without really committing himself to the extent that you can't just hold it off and be okay. So really great play by Polt, and that's a cool build to see him throw in. That's the kind of thing, you know, you're looking at, you're like, this is not necessarily a bad ladder build as well, because this will give you that extra barracks of production to defend against early attacks. Something that I would look at, you know, to bring into your mix of builds. So it was a cool way to play.
I enjoyed it as well. What I'm also enjoying is some of these other quarterfinals. I'm not sure if it's an option that we can jump to my screen, but I would love to do it real quick because I think a couple of these games look really interesting. As you guys can see right now, we're just showing you the bracket of our ESL website. Bills was able to defeat QXC, so once more Bills showing that he's a very talented Protoss player, defeating one of the best Terrans in North America. And if he's able to upset Violet, that would be one hell. Imagine Bills wins the upper bracket.
That would be insane.
I
wouldn't believe it.
Then
I would be like, was there an error with this graph? Bills is good, but I don't think he's that good.
If Bills wins the upper bracket, then for the next 31 days, I will tweet once a day. Please follow Bills. He's awesome.
Yeah.
For the next 31 days, Nate. And I'm very busy the next 31 days, but I will still remember that. Huck versus Illusion is also an absolutely fantastic quarterfinal. And all the way on the south side of the bracket, we have Masa versus Hendelis. And I guess we could even take a look at our loser bracket, something we haven't done yet. Fok is going to go up against SWS. Puck defeated Taole. Desero versus Xeno. Wow, that's such a good match already. First round of losers. And Moose Girls versus QXC. That's a great matchup as well. Oh, so many great series. I wish we were able to cast like 3 series at once, Nate. Do you think that's the future of casting? When you can just like clone yourself to cast 2 series at once?
We get one game on your screen, 1 game on my screen, 1 game up there, and we just go to town.
Yeah, we just talk.
Just bounce between them all. Just
you guys are
literally non-stop action.
Yep, you guys will be watching a PvP, but we are actually talking about the TVZ while Nate is talking about the ZVZ.
Yeah. Marine splitting against Banelings while force fields go up against sentries on the ramp. Like,
and time warps are being dropped in the TVT. It's happening. The future of StarCraft. Either way, for now, we're going to head up to a very small commercial break. Allows us to drink some water, and after that, we'll be back. I don't know with what series, but we're just going to try to pick one that looks the best to us and hopefully to you guys as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with much more Intel Extreme Masters action.